and an example of an integrated FP&A here with Garrett Dennie, Vice President Finance at Linde. Garrett, over to you.
Thanks, Hans. So as Hans mentioned at the start, I'm an FP&A practitioner over the last 20 years or so, working in several different industries. And one thing that I ask myself in each organization is, where exactly do we sit on that planning spectrum? Because integrated planning is really more than just soliciting a financial plan from all the different functions. You really need to think about, the data that supports the plans, the reporting that you have to turn that data into information. Different lead times. I used to work in a department store here in Canada, and at some points we were trying to define strategy and create strategic plans past June for the next year. In a department store where we were buying across seas, those lead times were 9, 10, 11 months out to purchase. So if you're creating your strategy after June, you can't affect 2/3 to 3/4 of the year. So you really need to make sure across functions you've got your process lead times in order and are doing your strategic plans in time to catch your purchase plans and all the rest of your operational plans. So process lead time is huge. And so if we look at that overall spectrum, you've got some companies have no cross-functional integration whatsoever. The strategy is done independent of the financial plan, which is done independent of the operational plans. Some you do have some crossover where they're looking at different metrics of the operations that affect the financials, but not everything. In some cases, like I mentioned at the top, we ask each function for their dollar plans, but those aren't really backed up by any data or drivers. And then other ones where we've got select KPIs that are connected and aligned. And then, getting into best in class, we start to have ones where, we understand all the drivers, we understand all the KPIs, and we plan them, we report on them. And then when you can layer on any technology that helps automate and make those connections faster, you're just that much more ahead of the game. So technology, adding it on is a very important factor. I was in an organization, we brought in the slickest new tool. It was great, but we didn't have our data, our processes, or our lead times aligned, and you ended up getting garbage in, garbage out. So technology is important, but all those other pieces in front are much more important as well. As I'll talk about on my next slide, an example of, I'll go back to that department store I used to work at. The way we approached it was we kind of took a Maslow's hierarchy of needs look at things. And for those not familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's essentially a hierarchy where he looks at trying to understand oneself and understand others. And to really understand oneself and others, you need to first satisfy all the other needs at the bottom of the hierarchy. So your need for social acceptance, your need for security, financial security, your need for shelter, your need for food. You need to satisfy all those needs. If you haven't satisfied all those needs, you can't really understand yourself or understand others. This really applied well to getting to a fully integrated FP&A, this concept. So really understanding your drivers and KPIs. If you don't understand those, you can't really plan adequately. If you don't have the data to support the planning and the reporting to turn that data into consumable information, you can't really plan very well either. And then, as I mentioned in those examples prior, if your master calendars aren't aligned, you're missing the boat. You're already executing some things when you're trying to actually plan them. And so you need to have those master calendars aligned. Introducing a long-range continuous planning process is something that I felt was always key. It really spaced out and leveraged that alignment of master calendar. So as I mentioned earlier, strategy, if you're planning your strategy, longer range out, then the next step after planning that strategy is connecting that strategy to your financials, and then connecting those financials to the operations. And to really make sure that you build up to that strategy, you're working at those detailed initiative levels in the operations to feed the financials, which then syncs up with the strategy. So very important step. And then once you've got those pieces of the hierarchy satisfied, you can start looking at the technological enablement, which will just make things more automated, faster, easier to do, and just optimize them that much more. And then you're ready with great, fully integrated FP&A. And so that was an example that, in that department store setting, we really had to take a step back, look at things. Are we satisfying all the things at the bottom of the hierarchy to get to where we wanted to be with a fully integrated FP&A? In summary, what steps can any organization take to step into getting into that fully integrated FP&A and climbing that hierarchy? My view is, in some cases it's hard to start at the bottom because data is not sexy. It takes a lot of resources, a lot of time to really understand your drivers, make sure you've got clean data, one version of the truth, making sure that all your data definitions across functions are the same. That's a lot of work, and a lot of organizations don't see any immediate output from that work that translates onto a P&L, and so sometimes it's hard to start there. So really pick any part that is going to be most relevant to your organization. If it's a master calendar process, great. If it's introduce activity-based costing or zero-based budgeting, great. What you'll find once you hop into that one point is you really need to work backwards, because you can't have one without the others. You need to have good data. You need to have good reporting. You need to understand your drivers. And so getting to any point in that cycle, you really take whichever one is relevant and your culture or your organization will support. But then as you get into it, you're going to realize you need to satisfy all of them to get to where you want to go. And so that is kind of my approach, is go with whichever one is most relevant.